Throughout history, the fate of empires, the rise of civilizations, and the collapse of kingdoms have been decided not in palaces, but on the battlefield. Behind every flag raised in victory stood a mind, sharp, unyielding, and utterly brilliant. These were the titans of strategy, masters of war, and legends whose names echo through the ages. From the deserts of Arabia to the snows of Russia, from phalanxes to nuclear arsenals, these are the 10 greatest military leaders in human history. Saladin, 1137 to 1193. The noble warrior. He was the nightmare of crusaders and the embodiment of honor, even to his enemies. Born in Tikrit, Saladin rose through the ranks of the Muslim armies during the 12th century, but it was during the Crusades that his genius truly emerged. With unmatched discipline and strategy, he reclaimed Jerusalem in 1187 after the legendary Battle of Hattin. What made Saladin truly extraordinary wasn't just his victories, but his mercy. When he entered Jerusalem, he forbade looting, spared civilians, and even ransomed prisoners. To his foes, he was a formidable enemy. To history, he was a warrior of honor. Robert E. Lee, 1807–1870, the reluctant genius. A man torn between loyalty to his country and loyalty to his home. Robert E. Lee led the Confederate forces during the American Civil War. A master tactician, he routinely outmaneuvered larger Union forces. His 1862 campaign in Virginia is still studied in military academies around the world. Despite being on the losing side, his legacy as a general is untouched. His decisions at Antietam, Chancellorsville, and Fredericksburg showed daring brilliance. But Lee's story is also a tragedy, a brilliant man who chose the wrong cause and lost everything. Napoleon Bonaparte, 1769 to 1821, the master of Europe. He rose from a small island to command all of Europe. Napoleon wasn't just a general, he was an era. With swift, ruthless campaigns, he rewrote the rules of warfare. His use of corps, mobility, and artillery transformed 19th century battles. He defeated coalitions, toppled monarchies, and crowned himself emperor. At Austerlitz, he humiliated the combined armies of Austria and Russia. His downfall came only when he overextended into Russia, yet even in defeat, his legend grew. The world would never be the same after Napoleon. Genghis Khan, circa 1162 to 1227, the conqueror of worlds. He was a storm from the steppe, a man who united warring tribes and built the largest land empire in history. Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan, led his Mongol hordes across Asia and into Europe, leaving a trail of shock and awe. His tactics were brutally efficient: mobility, fear, psychological warfare, and brilliant use of terrain. He conquered more land than Alexander, Napoleon, or Caesar. Cities fell, kings kneeled, and empires crumbled. Genghis Khan was not just a destroyer, he was a lawgiver, a visionary, and the world still bears his scars. Hannibal Barca, 247 to 183 BC. The elephant strategist. From the mountains of Carthage came the man who terrified Rome. Hannibal is best known for leading his army, including war elephants, over the Alps to strike Rome where it least expected. At Cannae, he achieved one of the most perfect tactical victories in history, surrounding and annihilating a much larger Roman army. His campaigns shook the very foundations of the Roman Republic, and though he was eventually defeated, Rome would never forget the man who made them tremble. Even today, the name Hannibal evokes awe. Khalid ibn al-Walid, 592 to 642. The sword of Allah, a warrior undefeated in over 100 battles. Khalid ibn al-Walid led the early Muslim conquest with lightning speed and brilliant coordination. At Yarmouk, he crushed a Byzantine force several times larger than his own. He was ruthless, efficient, and devastatingly effective. In just a few years, He helped expand the Islamic Caliphate across the Middle East. Yet when power corrupted others, he remained humble. Caliph Umar dismissed him, not out of failure, but out of fear people would worship his name more than God's. Still, his legacy as a military genius endures. Alexander the Great, 356 to 323 BC, the God King of War. In just 12 years, he conquered the known world. Alexander the Great inherited his father's kingdom at 20. By 30, he ruled from Greece to India. At Issus, Gaugamela, in the Indus River, he crushed armies many times his size. But Alexander was more than a conqueror. He was a visionary. He spread Hellenistic culture, founded cities, and dreamed of uniting East and West. His men followed him through deserts, mountains, and jungles, not out of fear, but loyalty. His empire didn't survive him, but his legend never died. Julius Caesar, 100 to 44 BC, the strategist of Rome. Before he was assassinated, he was invincible. Julius Caesar was not just a general, he was a force of nature. In Gaul, he annihilated tribes and turned Rome into an empire in waiting. His invasion of Britain, crossing of the Rubicon, and victory in the Civil War rewrote history. He fought not just with armies, but with politics, with words, with vision. Caesar's brilliance in logistics, engineering, and morale remains unmatched. And when the Senate stabbed him to death, they weren't killing a man. They were killing the future. George S. Patton, 1885 to 1945, the thunderbolt of World War II. He believed in reincarnation and tanks. General Patton was the Allied sledgehammer in World War II. He led campaigns in North Africa, Sicily, and Europe with fire, fury, and speed. His bold counterattack during the Battle of the Bulge saved the front lines. Patton understood movement. He once said, "Fixed fortifications are monuments to man's stupidity." Though controversial, his aggression won battles that changed the world. He was born for war and died shortly after it ended. Sun Tzu, 544 to 496 BC, the philosopher general before there were guns, tanks, or empires. There was the art of war. Sun Tzu may not have commanded massive legions, but his influence shaped every commander who came after. His teachings on deception, timing, and psychology remain sacred in military academies to this day. His strategies won battles without bloodshed. His words were sharper than swords. And while his victories are lost to time, his wisdom became eternal. Know thyself, know thy enemy, and you will never be defeated. Sun Tzu wasn't just a general. He was the soul of war itself. War has always been part of humanity. But in every era, a few rose above the chaos, not just to win battles, but to shape the very course of history. They were feared, admired, and remembered. These were the greatest military minds the world has ever known.